Look, I know how this sounds. I really do. And before you start forming your little judgments, your neat, tidy boxes to put me in, just hear me out, okay? Just give me 5 minutes. Because I'm not saying what I did was right, not entirely. But it wasn't some casual cruelty, either. It wasn't just a whim. It was complicated. It was a choice, yes, but it felt like the only choice I had left, a desperate gasp for air in a life that was slowly, suffocatingly, consuming me. My name is Clara, and I'm 32. And this is the story of how I blew up my perfectly good life, not because it was bad, but because it was too good, too perfect, too boring. It started with Thomas. My Thomas. We'd been together since we were 19, a lifetime. Almost 13 years. We met in our first year of university, a chance encounter in a crowded lecture hall. He was everything everyone said you should want. Stable. Kind. Unfailingly polite. He remembered my favorite coffee order, my mother's birthday, the anniversary of my dog passing away. He built shelves when I needed them, fixed the leaky faucet without me asking, and always had a comforting hand on my knee whenever I was stressed. Everyone loved Thomas. My family adored him. My friends thought he was a saint. He was the golden boy, the dependable one, the man who would never, ever let you down. And I was Clara, his bright, vivacious partner, the one who brought a spark to his steady flame. Or so everyone believed. We moved in together after graduation, bought a small house in the suburbs a few years later, complete with a perfectly manicured lawn and a 2-car garage. We had date nights every Friday, always the same Italian place, always the same booth. Sundays were for meal prepping for the week ahead, then a quiet evening on the sofa, watching whatever predictable documentary Thomas had found. He was attentive, yes, profoundly so. But his attention felt less like a warm embrace and more like a tight, comforting blanket that, over time, became a weighted shroud. His kindness, which was initially so appealing, began to feel weak. His stability, once my anchor, became a lead weight dragging me down. His attentiveness, so thoughtful at first, transformed into a smothering predictability. I knew what he was going to say before he said it. I knew how he would react to any given situation, from a flat tire to a job promotion. There were no surprises, no wild impulses, no spontaneous adventures. We were a beautifully rendered painting, framed and hung perfectly, collecting dust. Every morning, the same routine, he'd wake before me, make the coffee just the way I liked it, then kiss me gently on the forehead as I stirred. Every evening, he'd ask about my day, listen patiently, offer practical, sensible advice. And every night, we'd settle into bed, his arm would come around me in the exact same position, and I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, feeling a profound, unsettling emptiness. Was this it? Was this really all there was for the rest of my life? This comfortable, quiet, predictable peace? It felt less like peace and more like a carefully constructed prison, one where the bars were made of affection and the walls were lined with good intentions. Can you imagine that? Being so utterly, perfectly cared for, yet feeling like you were slowly, invisibly, drowning? What's wrong with you, I'd ask myself, when every woman you know would kill for a Thomas. But I just couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped, shrinking inside a life that was too small for me, too quiet, too safe. I wanted to feel alive. I wanted chaos. I wanted to feel something that wasn't just a gentle hum of contentment. And then, Liam walked in. He wasn't some dramatic, motorcycle-riding bad boy from a movie. He was a new client at the marketing agency where I worked, a freelance graphic designer. He had unruly dark hair, a laugh that sounded like gravel and sunshine, and eyes that saw everything. From our very first meeting, it was different. Thomas saw me as a complex woman he understood, a puzzle he'd solved. Liam looked at me like an unsolved mystery, a book he couldn't wait to read. He challenged me, not with arguments, but with perspectives. He talked about things Thomas never would: art, philosophy, the absurdity of modern life, the desperate need for human connection that wasn't pre-scripted. He quoted obscure poets and shared his own cynical, dark humor that made me laugh until my sides hurt, the kind of laughter I hadn't genuinely felt in years. With Thomas, our humor was gentle, observational. With Liam, it was biting, subversive, a shared wink at the world. He was everything Thomas wasn't: spontaneous, unpredictable, a little bit dangerous. He was the opposite of the perfectly manicured lawn and the Sunday meal prep. He was the crack in the foundation, the wild growth pushing through the pavement. Our work meetings stretched into long, rambling conversations over coffee, then coffee turned into late-night drinks, brainstorming sessions that ended with my heart hammering against my ribs, a thrilling, terrifying drumbeat I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. The first time I lied to Thomas about being home late, saying a client call had run over, I felt a jolt of something akin to power. Guilt, yes, a sharp, unpleasant pang, but also a rush of adrenaline. It was a secret, my secret. Thomas just nodded, said, "Oh, busy day, huh? I've kept your dinner warm," and my guilt subsided, replaced by a strange sense of vindication. He didn't even question it. He trusted me implicitly. And wasn't that, in its own twisted way, his fault? His unwavering trust felt less like a gift and more like a green light, an unspoken permission to explore the boundaries he wasn't even aware I had. The text started innocently enough: "Great meeting today, then, you really got my idea, then, thinking about that thing you said soon." They were more intimate, more suggestive. Liam had a way with words, a casual intensity that made me feel utterly seen, utterly desired. He'd text me pictures of art he liked, or random, absurd observations about people on the street, and I'd send back my own cynical comments. We were building a world, just us. It was exhilarating, a constant thrum beneath my skin. I found myself looking forward to his messages more than anything else in my day. I started dressing differently, wearing brighter colors, more daring styles. I felt like I was rediscovering parts of myself I'd buried under years of sensible choices and quiet evenings. I felt like Clara again, but a new, improved, more vibrant Clara. The Clara that Thomas had never quite seen, or perhaps, had seen and quietly, subtly, tried to tame. The lying escalated. Dinners with friends that weren't. Late nights at the gym that were actually spent at a quiet bar, talking for hours with Liam. Each lie, each hidden message, each stolen moment felt like another brick in a secret wall I was building around myself, a fortress of forbidden excitement. I became an expert at compartmentalizing, at living two separate, distinct lives. The devoted partner at home, the vibrant, edgy conversationalist with Liam. It was exhausting, yes, but it was also intoxicating. The risk, the thrill of being found out, it all amplified the feeling of being alive. Thomas, bless his naive heart, never suspected. He'd occasionally ask if I was stressed or tired, but he never dug deeper. He saw what he wanted to see, what he expected to see, his reliable Clara, perhaps a little overworked. He'd offer to make me a cup of tea, or give me a foot rub, his kindness a constant, gentle pressure that somehow made my deception feel even more justified. He was so good. So predictable. So safe. And I was so tired of safe. The breaking point, or perhaps, the point of no return, came on a work trip. We were in another city, a conference. Liam was there too, naturally. We'd managed to keep our intense connection strictly intellectual, strictly emotional, strictly friends up until that point. Or so I told myself. That night, after a particularly draining day of presentations, we found ourselves alone in the hotel bar, the last two people lingering. The conversation flowed, as it always did, from light banter to deep, existential questions. He looked at me, truly looked at me, and said, "You know, Clara, you're the most alive person I've ever met." And in that moment, all the years of quiet dissatisfaction, all the unspoken longing, all the buried desire for something more, it erupted. We ended up in his room. It wasn't planned, it wasn't cold, it wasn't even particularly passionate in a dramatic, movie-sex way. It was inevitable. It was a sigh of relief, a dam breaking. And the next morning, as I lay next to him, tangled in his sheets, feeling utterly exposed and utterly free, I knew. There was no going back. This was it. This was real. This raw, immediate, exhilarating connection. This was the love I had been searching for. The love that Thomas, in his quiet, dependable way, could never give me. When I got back home, the house felt small. Thomas felt muted. His familiar scent, his comfortable presence, it all felt like a heavy blanket. The lies became bigger, bolder. I started spending weekends away, claiming last-minute work retreats or girls' trips. Thomas, bless him, would pack me a lunch, remind me to drive safely, and tell me to have fun. He just trusted. That trust, once a comfort, had become a suffocating weight. I truly believed, in my twisted, deluded heart, that Liam and I were meant to be. He was the chaotic energy I craved, the wildfire to Thomas's gentle embers. We planned a future together, a wild, spontaneous life full of adventure, art, and intellectual sparring. We would travel, we would create, we would live authentically. He said he felt it too, this undeniable connection, this soul-deep understanding. He told me he'd never felt this way before, not with anyone. And I believed him. I poured all my hopes, all my longing, all my pent-up frustration into that fantasy. I started picturing our apartment, a messy, vibrant space filled with books and art, not a meticulously ordered suburban house. I saw us, laughing, bickering, fiercely independent yet passionately intertwined. And then, the fantasy shattered. Not with a bang, but with a casual, almost indifferent shrug from Liam. After weeks of intense planning, of me mentally dismantling my life with Thomas piece by piece, I finally said it. I told Liam I was leaving Thomas, for him. For us. I stood there, trembling, waiting for the ecstatic embrace, the validation, the confirmation that this was the right, albeit painful, path. He looked at me, a strange, unreadable expression on his face. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Clara," he said, and his voice was suddenly flat, devoid of the usual spark. "Look, this has been intense. Amazing, even. But I told you from the start. I'm not really a relationship guy. I'm not ready for all that." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "We've talked about this. Our future. You said you've never felt this way before." He sighed, that casual, indifferent sigh that ripped through me like a knife. "Yeah, I did. And it's true. But that doesn't mean marriage, kids, moving in together. I meant, like, I haven't felt this alive. This inspired. You're incredible, Clara. But this was the moment. A phase. A really, really great phase. I'm not looking to, settle down." He wasn't looking to settle down? He hadn't been looking for marriage and kids? What the F? We had literally discussed what city we'd live in, whether we preferred a loft or a townhouse. My stomach dropped. The air went out of the room. He was looking at me like I was a burden, not a revelation. And then he added, almost as an afterthought, "My ex and I are actually trying to work things out. She just got back into town." My vision blurred. Ex? He had an ex? A primary partner this whole time? I felt sick. Humiliated. All of it, the intense conversations, the shared jokes, the feeling of being seen, it was just a phase for him. A fleeting, artistic inspiration. And I was the convenient muse. I don't remember much about getting home that day. A blur of tears, a dull ache in my chest. I walked into the house, and Thomas was there, sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers meticulously arranged in front of him. He looked up, his face grim, his eyes devoid of their usual warmth. I saw a flash of something I'd never seen before, a cold, quiet fury. "Where have you been, Clara?" he asked, his voice flat, dangerously calm. I was with a friend," I stammered, the last, useless lie escaping my lips. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't yell. He didn't even look angry. He just looked empty. And resolute. "No, you weren't," he said, pushing a file across the table towards me. "You were with Liam. The graphic designer. The one you've been seeing for months. The one you spent the weekend with at the conference in Denver. The one whose texts you've been deleting off your phone, but not before I got screenshots." My heart seized. Screenshots? What was he talking about? I fumbled with the papers. It was all there. Call logs showing late-night conversations with an unknown number, cross-referenced with Liam's work contact. Geolocation data from my phone showing me at an address I'd claimed was a friend's apartment but was actually Liam's. Screenshots of my own deleted texts to Liam, not just the mundane ones, but the intimate, suggestive ones, the ones where I'd said I couldn't wait to be free. He'd known. He hadn't just suspected, he had known. For how long? He watched my face crumple, tears streaming down, not from regret, not really, but from the shock of being caught, of my carefully constructed lies being so utterly, ruthlessly exposed. "You didn't think I'd notice?" he asked, his voice still low, but laced with a bitterness that chilled me to the bone. "You didn't think I'd feel it? The distance? The excuses? I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But I also wasn't going to let you humiliate me in the dark. So I gathered the proof." He stood up, picked up his own phone, and the house keys. "I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of a fight. This is over, Clara. I'm done." He looked at me, really looked at me, with a gaze that held neither love nor hatred, just a vast, empty disappointment. "You found your excitement. Good for you. Now you can live with it." And he walked out the door. Just like that. No drama, no yelling, no second chances. Just a quiet, devastating finality. He left a note on the counter, "I'll be staying with my sister. You have a week to pack your things. My lawyer will be in touch regarding the house." The next few days were a blur of numb panic. I tried calling Thomas. His number was blocked. I tried his sister, his parents. They either didn't answer or hung up immediately. His mother, a woman who had always treated me like a daughter, eventually answered my insistent calls, her voice cold as ice. "Don't you dare call here again, Clara," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. "You broke his heart. You humiliated him. He loved you with everything he had, and you threw it away for nothing. You are a selfish, cruel woman. Leave us alone." And my own friends, the ones who knew both of us, slowly but surely faded away. Some sent texts saying they were disappointed, others just ghosted. My own family, normally so supportive, were clearly uncomfortable. My mother asked, "Are you sure you gave it your all, sweetheart?" Thomas was such a good man. It was a question, but it felt like an accusation. I was isolated. Utterly, completely alone. And Liam? He cut ties just as swiftly. A terse email, "Look, this is a mess. I can't deal with this kind of drama. It was fun, but I need to focus on my work. Don't contact me again." He blamed me for the drama. The wild, exciting, unpredictable man I thought was my soulmate abandoned me the moment there were consequences. It was a cruel, poetic justice, I suppose. I had traded a life of quiet stability for a momentary thrill, and in return, I got nothing but emptiness. Months turned into a year, then 2. Thomas, I heard through the grapevine, mostly from my mother, who had a surprising amount of contact with his sister, was thriving. He'd moved out of the suburbs, into a trendy downtown apartment. He'd started his own business, something about sustainable tech, and it was apparently incredibly successful. He looked younger, happier. He was traveling, taking up new hobbies, rock climbing, of all things, something he'd always said he was too sensible for. And then, the ultimate blow. A photo, shared innocently by a mutual acquaintance on social media, that somehow slipped through my self-imposed isolation. Thomas, standing on a beach at sunset, his arm around a beautiful woman with a warm, open smile. She was everything I was not: serene, confident, radiating genuine happiness. Her hand rested gently on her stomach. She was pregnant. He was starting a family. Without me. He was truly, irrevocably happy. He had found his peace, his true partner, his bright future. And I was nowhere in it. Me? I moved into a small, nondescript apartment in a different part of the city. My job felt stale. My attempts at new relationships were disastrous. Every man I met seemed to pale in comparison to the phantom of the excitement I'd chased, or the genuine kindness I'd discarded. Or maybe it was just that I couldn't trust myself anymore, couldn't truly open myself up. I destroyed something good, something truly valuable, for a fleeting, ultimately meaningless, illusion. And for what? For a feeling? A sensation? For the notion that I deserved more. It's funny, isn't it? How you chase after this idea of something better, something more thrilling, only to realize that what you had was precious precisely because it was stable, because it was kind, because it was quietly, dependably loving. I don't regret wanting to feel alive. I don't regret wanting passion. But I do regret the way I went about finding it. The collateral damage. The sheer, utter devastation I wrought. I broke a good man's heart, shattered a family's trust, and alienated almost everyone who cared about me. And Liam? He was just a mirror, reflecting back the parts of me that were restless, unsatisfied, reckless. He wasn't the answer, he was just a symptom. Sometimes, late at night, I still lie awake, staring at my ceiling, just like I used to with Thomas. But now, there's no arm around me, no familiar scent, no comforting presence. Just silence. And the echo of a question: was it worth it? Was the brief, exhilarating, devastating rush worth this quiet, crushing loneliness? I tell myself I learned something. I tell myself I needed to break free to truly understand myself. I tell myself it was a necessary step, a brutal awakening. But those are just words, aren't they? Just more rationalizations, whispered into the void. Because the truth is, I'm still here, alone, wondering if I'll ever truly forgive myself. And knowing, deep down, that maybe I don't deserve to be.